Good afternoon and welcome to the Pervasive Media Studio Lunchtime Talk. These talks are live every Friday at 1 p.m., both here in the building and live online. So whether you're in Bristol or away, you can join in the conversation. Every Friday we open the doors of the Pervasive Media Studio for Open Studio Friday, where we offer you the chance to spend time in the space by hot desking alongside our residents and staff from 10 p.m. till 5 p.m. From 10 a.m. till 5 p.m., sorry. And especially big welcome to those who are new to the studio, for whom this might be the first time you're engaging with us. So anyone new to the studio? Oh, what a lot of people. Welcome. So what is the Pervasive Media Studio? We're going to explain a little bit what we do here. We're a diverse and collaborative community exploring creativity and technology with everything from comedy to coding and product development to performance art. It's a partnership between Watershed, UWE Bristol and University of Bristol and funded by the Arts Council England. We offer studio space, desk space, meeting rooms, events and opportunities to our residents as part of our spirit of generosity and mutual exchange. We're a space for people to take risks with embryonic ideas and to make time for collaboration. A few notes before we begin, a bit of housekeeping. Feel free to move around, make a cup of tea or grab a glass of water from the kitchen, which is over there. We have a quiet space just next to this space right there to my left. For anyone that needs to take a break at any point, just go there and use the room. Fire exits are at either side of the end of the studio. Any studio team people that are here will direct you if needed. Accessible toilets and baby change, although we don't have babies today, can be found at the corridor next to the kitchen. There is a Q&A at the end, and also I don't think we're expecting any fire drills, so if you hear anything, it's probably real. For those who are watching online, pop in your questions in the YouTube chat. Lautim, right there, will be your voice in the room today who's having lunch. That's why I'm laughing. Many people do on the lunchtime talk. They bring their lunches here. And if you're in the building, just raise your hands at the end, and we will send around a microphone so the people at home can hear you. So we need everyone that's talking a microphone. You can get news on all our future talks by heading to watershed.co.uk/studio, at Pervasive Media Studio, at mastodon.social on Mastodon, at pmsstudiouk.bsky.social on Blue Sky, at Pervasive Media Studio on Instagram. So our speakers today, they are Hugo and Jonathan from Ottomata. Ottomata is an experiential design studio based in Montreal, specialized in the conception of interactive installations and immersive journeys that spark curiosity and engage people through art. Ottomata's work, Tetra, is an interactive installation and is part of the Bristol Light Festival, which is kickstarting today. So please go to Broadmead and experience the Ottomata's work there. And just to let you know, it's from today until the 9th of Feb. And without further ado, please join me and give a very warm welcome to Jonathan and Hugo.
Well, thank you. So I'm Hugo.
I'm Jonathan.
And first and foremost, maybe you can hear from my voice, but it's minus 25 degrees Celsius back in Montreal. And I arrived here in the United Kingdom, and I get tonsillitis, so you might have some trouble hearing me out, but hopefully the message stays clear and loud enough. But if not, Joe's going to cover for me. I'm not singing any opera today, so I think that's going to be fine. So Ottomata, of course, there's been a few words mentioned about what we do. We're an experiential design studio based in Montreal, and we push the boundaries of immersion through interaction. So what we mean by that is that for us, great immersion can only start to happen when there's also great interaction and when we start to involve the public inside of the work, not only treating them as bystanders, but rather as complete individuals who act out of their own will. And so we craft these different experiences, whether they're outside installations, as in the light festivals, immersive exhibits inside of museums, or also, well, brand activations for agencies, all these kind of works, we try to make use of the body of the public and try to understand what they want to do inside of the space. And so it's a project, well, we started in 2017, but Joe and I, it goes back to, I'd say 2014, where we met at a university. And we already had the chance to work on many projects together. A bit on my background, I've been coding since I'm like, I'd say 12 or 13, toying around like trying to make websites. Ultimately, I wanted to create video games. I was big into like role-playing games and Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that. And I wanted to, well, make a reality out of these stories and show my friends. And so I taught myself how to code with the emergence of the web and stuff like that. And after that, when college arrived, I went into electrical engineering to kind of complete my knowledge of code, because toying with like Arduinos and wires and stuff like that was a bit harder to get by at this moment. But then it was a bit too, I'd say, maybe Cartesian, so I didn't want to be in electrical engineering. So I found this program called Interactive Media, and it was at UQAM, so Université du Québec à Montréal. And this is where I understood that we can break out of the screen and intervene in the public space. And this is also where I know Joe. So.
Yeah, so we met in university, but I think we also met kind of in our cultural references, that what we were consuming as far as like video game references, electronic music, and yeah, similar background to Hugo. Also did some engineering in electronics, and we met at the university more. So we came from a technical background, I think we can say that, and slowly shifted through trying to wrap our heads around interaction, which is involving human most of the time. So it kind of this fine lines of balancing technology and human perceptions, and through our experience that we try to design every day.
So yeah, maybe enough words. Maybe a video will tell a bit more. The video is a bit dated. It's about 2 years old, so it doesn't include like a lot of new works that we've done, but it's quite an overview of the whole idea that we have behind all of these projects involves people. We get to see the reactions in real time, their first impressions of the project, and it kind of, over the past, well, almost 8 years that we worked together, we never really took much time to think about like what's this special thing that we create where it all starts to happen and people understand. And well, over the past few months, we had the chance to maybe think a bit more about that, and we came up with this idea that we call now the zero moment. So the zero moment inside of, well, our pieces is the idea that you're in a public place, so you're not going to have the chance to read a whole like a set of rules or have someone guide you and hold you by the hand, tell you what you can or cannot do. Of course, we also kind of dislike that. We don't like being told what we have to do, so we hope that public understand by themselves. So we have to come up with these zero moments where as soon as you step inside one of our work, you almost immediately understand what you have to do or can or cannot do. If there's a light shining, you just walk like to get closer, it starts to react a bit more. If you see some stuff on the floor, you might want to step on it or roll on it if you don't care, or any kind of way that we can convey this idea or convince you to act. This is the zero moment. And of course, it's a very hard thing to create because in a public setting, you might be shy, you might be thinking about something else. And if it doesn't work, but before the first second is over, we're losing you. So you're gonna leave, you're gonna shut yourself down and not want to explore a bit more. So, well, how do we craft these zero moments? There's many different ways, but so this is, well, it's taken from the video, but we think it's kind of a great example of a good interaction where people, they forget that they're in a public setting and it's minus 20 outside. They just get inside of the moment, and rather than working themselves and trying to adapt to what the work wants out of them, it's the opposite. We try to understand what the public does and then let them express their own personality inside of the work, which is ultimately the sign of a good or successful project, in our opinion. If you can let your personality shine through, then it's a success for us. And so it starts with like a bunch of wires on the ground, the screens, projection mapping in the studio. We often like leave the stuff just laying there so that people passing by can try it and we see how people react. It starts with beautiful drawings because Joe's the great artist behind all of the sketches, but we have like dozens of notebooks like just laying over the past few years that we should open a couple of them back because we might have great ideas inside of them, but we sketch a lot of stuff. It starts like with like metal frames that then become stages, and then ultimately it becomes an installation where you can become a light orchestra conductor inside of a city in Arizona. It starts with like we want to use water and light and mirrors, and then we just shoot laser on the mirror and see what happens. Ultimately, it becomes a bit more elegant and almost become a work for a gallery, an art gallery. We have this idea to create infinite reflections. So we put LEDs and we buy mirrors from thrift shops and we put them together. But then it evolves a bit and it becomes a great light LED installation in the middle of downtown Montreal. We fool around quite a lot also. So we don't take ourselves too seriously, but once again, public space, there's nobody who's gonna watch what people do. So if they wanna be like a bit crazy, they're gonna do it. So better start from the first moment and try to break our project or like interact as fools ourselves. So, and it makes the studio a bit more fun as well. And you see like, once again, wires and us on the ground just welding stuff and programming. Like here we have a plant that reacts to touch. It's an idea that's quite common, but then it's fun to just toy around and try new stuff. And once again, skateboarding at the studio, biking, and but this encompasses a little bit another concept at the studio, which is we try to make the technology as invisible as possible so that you're going to have this sense of wonder. So how does it work? So some people might have guesses and say, I know there's like 4 cameras in there. And you're like, maybe not. But and it's not even camera, it's like microphones. But the person is happy that they have found maybe a solution in their head. It adds a little bit more to the magic touch of these works. And so this is I put these images because it's how Tetra came to be. But so once again, spandex we hung in the studio and projected and see what was happening over the few weeks it was in the studio, and then it evolved. This is in Fort Lauderdale last year, the backstage view of it, and the final view of how it looked in the end. And so once again, the R&D groundwork for our stuff is public space and test outside as often as possible. Joe, I don't know if you have for the...
Yeah, just to come back to the 0 point, or let's say the first step you take in the work, we often compare immersion and interaction, and we also question ourselves all the time about it. We also think it's kind of a word that's used abroad. Like if you go back in websites or in the web 2.0, web 3, it's kind of everything is called immersive. You can almost be immersed in your phone also all the time. So this is why we try to bring back people in real life. And maybe it's a suggestion, but we can talk also more in the Q&A after. But like the immersion goes back to a digital world, virtual, whereas we try to bring people with technology, with digital, in reality, with interaction. So because it's implying your senses, most of the time you've probably noticed, but we're using hands. The human brain in real time is processed. Like I'm talking right now, I'm moving my hands because the hands is using a lot of bandwidth in the stimulus of the brain. So to bring back people in the real life together, we need to be less in the virtual, screens, but bring back more people in the real moment that we try to create together. And R&D is also part of it, and it's a fun fact because most of the time we adults are a little bit more serious in public spaces, whereas we like to experiment with kids because the inhibition level is almost zero, and they run around, they touch everything. Most of the time they even generate some interaction that we didn't thought at first. So they will put their head into it, they will touch both together, and so that's a fun fact. And so sometimes we try to create, let's say, an interaction, and by looking people reaction to our intention, it switch around. So we go back to the studio and say, okay, how do we work around that, or how do we use that in order to keep going, So yeah.
So we have a couple of projects that we'd like to showcase that encompasses maybe a bit of a backstory as the studio grew over the years, but they encompass the 0 moment idea as well. So this one, well, you've seen a little bit in the demo reel. It's called the Bombay Sapphire Flavor Journey. It was actually the first project that we did as a studio. So it was in Tokyo. We're quite happy to be able to fly over there to deliver our first project, but it also came with a lot of stress and other challenges to surmount. But so Bombay Sapphire Flavor Journey was a collaboration between us and Champagne Club Sandwich, which is another Montreal-based studio. And the idea was to showcase the 10 different ingredients that create the Bombay Sapphire flavor. And so we came up with this idea to create the Bombay Sapphire Express, which was a train that was supposed to take you all across the globe to show you where all these ingredients grow and put you in the shoe of an adventurer. And so we created like these 2 different rooms. We handed out tickets in the street for people to hop aboard the train. And well, I believe a video tells a bit more than words. So. So it was really an immersive experience just before the buzzword came to be. I think we didn't even call that an immersive exhibit, like because it was in 2017. I don't know how we called it, an interactive show or something, but like fast forward 3-4 years and now everything is immersive, as Joe mentioned. But yeah, the zero moment in this, well, there's many moments. So it's really 5 senses that all come together. So you get to taste the gin as soon as you get in. We have a shelf with all the different ingredients so you can smell them, touch them. But you're also inside of this like fake train wagon. You look through the window and there's like this landscape all hand-drawn that's passing by, which is already really interesting in itself. All of the visuals are hand-drawn by artists with whom we've collaborated. And then you get to the table, you put your gin on the table, and well, it starts to reveal this adventurer's notebook with all these notes about today I've found this juniper berry in this forest. Tomorrow I will climb this mountain in order to find about this route. And whether you want it or not, you're interacting, because as soon as you step inside, you're there. So going back to this idea, trying to, well, the technology is not that hidden, but it's part of the space itself, and it adapts itself to the audience rather than the other way around. So completing this whole idea.
And also in this experience, as we mentioned earlier, we try to bring people together, but how do you bring people, like anonymous people together in order to do something? And in this one was quite simple, but the size of the table was big enough that if you would try to just do it yourself, you wouldn't have time, because you're kind of digging through sand to reveal the layer underneath, but you wouldn't have enough time to do it yourself. So you need to coordinate with someone in order to have access to the second stage. So sometimes it doesn't need to be super complicated, but you can find ways for people that doesn't know each other to coordinate themselves. And fun fact also about this project, we also all the time called the Murphy's Law, but I heard here it's another word. It's Seth's Law. I don't know how to pronounce it, but we always have those moments kind of because we work with technology, right? And I'm sure you all had your moments with technology that you kind of frustrated. But in this case, we had the project running for, I don't know, 2 weeks at our studio, two weeks in Japan. Everything is going so well. We're celebrating almost. We're drinking gin with everyone and we're having fun. And the CEO of Bombay Sapphire entered the rooms and looked at this table and is amazed. And the second the person touched the table, we saw Windows pop up,
log.
error, and everything crash. And then we look at ourselves and we're like, oh, okay. So, but all this to say that like you can try to prevent those moments all you want, but you need to more accept it that it's going to be present, and just trying to find ways to, like diminish it the most you can, like with programming or hardware solution. But it's part of our reality in every project. We can all, like we always knock on wood, because even presenting Tetra this week, we're so super happy everything is going well, but you never know what can happen, and you need to embrace it more than reject it, because you won't be able to
sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of sweat and tears in different projects, but also tears of joy sometimes. A couple of years later, we got back to, well, one of the original idea that we wanted to do as a studio was create interactive installations for the public space, because we felt that interactive was kind of, a couple of years ago, interactive was the buzzword, and it's still a bit buzzy, but we felt that some lacked a little bit of depth, so we wanted to try to come up with something where people really could put their personality inside of the work. And we had the chance to create this project, which we called Splinter. And so we started designing it at the end of 2019. The idea was we were inspired by Stonehenge and like these big monoliths that kind of are bigger than you, and also this idea of this maybe the druidic ritual or circle where people come to gather and live a communal experience. But we're also inspired probably by sci-fi a lot, because these monoliths are maybe akin to the ones in 2001: A Space Odyssey, where there's this big monolith that appears out of nowhere to teach civilization about life and tools and everything. So we kind of jammed on this concept and came up with these 5 monoliths that appear out of the nowhere in the middle of a public space. So. So, well, maybe you've noticed some people wearing masks. So I don't know if this was the biggest Murphy's Law of our lives, but of course, if you go back a few years, we started designing the installation at the end of 2019. And at first, once again, sticking true to our roots, we tried to come up with an interaction where as soon as you step inside of the circle, the monolith, they know you're there, they sense you're there. So some get to shine a bit brighter, sound a bit louder. So, and the closer you get, the truer this gets, up until you can touch the monolith if you want. But we really didn't want to have like these giant touchscreens. Basically, it's mostly based around your silhouette that we're tracking and that you're interacting to get a connection with the monolith. But 2020 arrives and COVID happens. So instead of just being a cool feature, it actually became a COVID-proof installation, because it meant that it was an installation that you did not need to touch to actually interact with. But of course, people, maybe it reminds you a bit of a screen, so you go up and touch, but you're not forced to. It just so happened that people, well, they think about this. But once again, what can you prepare for if not for a pandemic?
And I think we learn a lot with this one, because as Hugo mentioned, it was middle of COVID, so we were kind of this big warehouse trying to create identities to monolith metal pieces, and we were kind of every day together trying to, speaking to those monoliths almost, and it was locked down in Montreal and Quebec, so we couldn't really have outside look on what we were doing. And we designed it for people to just show up in front of the monolith but they were touching it, because we are so used to touchscreens. So we learned with that. And another thing that's interesting with this one, we tried to kind of create a consciousness between those 5 monoliths. They have all different identities, but at a certain moment, they kind of all sync together in order to create this moment. So it was interesting to try to design something, and also to see if people, because you don't really see it, but at the end there's like this moment that maybe lasts a minute or two, and they're kind of all syncing together with people and interaction that was in each monolith in order to build and show kind of a result. So I think that was a nice restraint we gave ourselves to try to do this consciousness, even if it's only digital, but still in this moment in COVID and lockdown, it felt great for us to do that, I think.
So, well, before speaking about Tetra, there's maybe an in-between project that we call Autotrack, and we had to say a few words about this because it's a project technology that we've been developing, well, in-house for, I'd say, 3 or 4 years now. And once again, going back to trying to come up with these really intuitive ways to interact with anything in the public space. How can we do that? So we developed a tool set which we call Autotrack, which is basically a system where we can go outside in a room and put 1 or 2 sensor and transform like 5,000 square foot inside of a 5,000 square foot interactive field. So we treat, like we get the volumetric data inside of a software. So not only do we know the position, but also in X and Y, but also in Z. So we have a depth perception, and we create these layers of interaction or of exclusion. So for instance, to create a floor, we would create just a small 1 centimeter interaction zone on the floor. And then you get in front of a wall, which might be a bigger zone, like a couple of meters depth. And what's great is over the years of work on that, we've kind of, we now know that the technology works like in rain, in snow, in a snowstorm, whatever. So it's even better than human sight. So we can use this and just really rapidly start prototyping new interactions and new ways for projects to come to life. And so like this is a couple of like really quick projects, but for instance, this is a store in Toronto where we just put this technology and suddenly like all the walls, they are now aware of people passing by. And so when people come in front, they get more interaction and they get more information and stuff like that. Well, this is in downtown Montreal, so there's many projection mappings that have been there for, I'd say like 20, 25 years, but they're not interactive. So just by adding 1 or 2 sensor, we are now able to translate like the small people into these big scale monumental projection, which is quite interesting. This is at the Library of Parliament in Canada. So we had the chance to work on a project where, you walk on this star field and you reveal like these great Canadian moments and history moments. And this is at the planetarium in Montreal. So this is an exhibit about what if we were to colonize Mars in 100 years from now. And what's great is that, once again, trying to break out from the screen, it's not just projection or screen, it's actually like LED that's inside of the wall. So these small LED tiles that they have to clean in order for the power to come back to the Mars station. So this is also, what's great about this one is it's at Phi Center in Montreal. And it's the first time that we have a collaborator actually use one of our technology without us being involved. So of course we really like to come up with the content and everything, but once in a while it's great to see that other people find use in what we create just for their own sake and for their own exhibit. So and us being fools at the studio, me skateboarding, Joe biking on the project, and we just need a snowboard hills in there. So if we can find a mountain with enough projectors, we're gonna do it. So it would be quite cool.
So yeah, just to complete, I think it's interesting, even more so today, what technology brings to us and what we want to do with technology. Autotrack is kind of a way for us to kind of do what we would like technology to do for us. So I think there's sometimes we say we kind of bend technology in order to use it to do something else. So I think creativity sometimes it's hard with technology. It's more frigid maybe, but I think there's a way to be creative even with technology when you kind of imagine or try to imagine a little bit more what you need in order to work, and then to use it for yourself or for your project. So I invite everyone to think and be a hacker and imagine what you would expect from technology more than being passive and receiving from it.
So one great hack actually that we did is Tetra, and it's one of our favorite pieces that we had a chance to work on. And well, thanks for Bristol Light Festival to enabled us to do the European premiere here. So we're quite excited about that. And Tetra is actually an exploration of hidden forces of nature, but namely gravity in this instance. And it's a four-sided back projected spandex cube where you get to touch on the spandex, but also apply pressure and get to put your whole weight inside of the work. And the more you interact with it, the more you create this force field and flow of particles which interact with one another. So here's another small video. Sorry, so the tonsillitis. So what? Well, once again, we're super happy you'll be able to experience it starting tonight in downtown Bristol. But one thing that was quite scary. So these are pictures from last year in Fort Lauderdale. And when the project was created, it was done indoors, so inside of a studio, and works great, tracks well. We try to come the Murphy's Law and envision everything that's going to happen. But once we get there, we start to hang the spandex walls, and wind starts to pick up. And so the spandex has tension and becomes almost kind of like a boat sail. And so we were looking at each other and saying, oh my God, what's going to happen? Like the wind is just going to be so strong, people won't be able to interact with it. So anyway, we're like, okay, let's just wait and put the content and see what's going to happen. And so this is what we do. And so we get these big ripples of wind, or gust of wind pushing inside of the screens. And we're like, oh my God. But we just start interacting with it. And then it starts to combine together. So basically, it only became truer that we were showcasing a hidden force of nature. So not gravity, wind, but maybe it came a little bit more poetic in that sense. So embracing the unknown and yeah. So I don't know if you have some.
Yeah,
stuff.
we're happy to just be able to be here and present our work, and yeah, ready for the Q&A and like whatever you guys have questions or anything. We're super happy to be here and have a discussion with you guys. So thanks. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was very interesting, and I'm trying to put the mic on my trousers again. Brilliant. Thank you. Is the microphone ready for questions? It's getting ready. We have had issues with batteries today. We realized that all the batteries were off. Anyone is ready for questions? We have.
Thank you. That was really cool.
Thanks.
I felt that was immersive, and now I feel inspired to be interactive. I'm wondering if you could talk more about how you figure out how users are going to interact with what you're doing. Do you use structured testing with people, and do you map things out in a structured way at first? And then when you're observing people, is there particular things you look for and notice when you see people?
I can start maybe. Yeah. I don't think I'll answer your question, but I'll give you maybe a side example, lived experience that we we did, it was for, let's say, an immersive VR cinema, let's say with 5D, everything you can imagine, and the moving seats and everything. And we had this point in the project where as people were kind of getting dizzy, and we had to kind of figure out which part, was it in the content, was it in the smells, in the room? So we kind of had to develop a system in order to track those inconvenient, let's say in the 25-minute experience, and showed up after looking at the data and analyzing it that it wasn't really aligned in particular moment. It was more due, in this case, to the VR headset, which people were getting sick of because you have a virtual world in front of your eyes and you're moving in a seat. So it wasn't. So it's not always linked to certain event and human. But on the other hand, we have some kind of intuition most of the time that are, I wouldn't say like every human is attracted by stuff, but we often use references, most of the time from video game. I don't know why, but we kind of have those moments where we remember when we were young, remember this moment in Zelda, and and try to reproduce it. So we use a lot of reference, I think, from gaming, but also from nature. Like, how do you try to show forces, let's say, on a screen or in Tetra or a black hole, and it's kind of intriguing. So yeah, I don't know. I don't have the perfect answer for that, but I think if interaction is all about human, so you need to understand when, how, where the human is located, what time of the day, is it after work? Let's say you have all your busy day and you're looking at some screens. Do you really want to interact? Is it the best moment in this day? Did you have a bad day? You know, are you in a group of people? If it's a group of kids for, let's say, that are going out for out of school journey, let's say, you have more chance to get their attention.
Stumble upon life and experience it. So we kind of try, of course, there's a design process, and we think in advance, most likely people are going to be walking there, and we try to get them. If they walk there, then maybe they get this first call to action, and then, okay, after the call to action, how do we build upon that? So there's the zero moment or the call to action. This is where we spend like 80% of our time, but it's intuition a lot and trial, a lot of prototypes. So that's why we have things at the studio on the ground, on the floor, so that we see what other people are going to do if they walk by. And so there's design, but then there's trial, and it's 80% of the time is spent on that. Yeah.
And maybe as far as design, if I can just add to what you said, Hugo, I think we most of the time envision kind of, you know, when you go on a hike, there's paths and there's nature, there's animals, there's wind, there's viewpoints. You can choose to stop at a viewpoint, let's say, or you can just keep going, you know, and just end your hike. So I think depending on where you are as a participant, I think we say in English, in French we say interactor. It's like you're not a player because it's not a video game. You're not an actor because it's not kind of a form of art. But we say interactor is kind of in between. So depending where you are in your state of willing to interacting, we try to give you the opportunities. But you could also kind of walk through it just as being a spectator of it also. And we try to guide, but not too much. You know, it's just proposition. And yeah, and there's also, since maybe you guys are interested in code in general, but a lot of the code kind of try to use not nature, but in some ways, like let's say how you program a vector field, or a lot of the basic rules are took from nature. So I think this also helps to get into the, if it feels fluid, natural, it's easier for you to engage. And if it's kind of something like more alien to you that you have hard time at that first step to step in, you know. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you both.
Hi there. I wondered, do you have any thoughts on kind of designing for beyond the individual? Because like if you're in public space, people are often coming in groups, and even if they're by themselves, there's like layers of spectatorship.
Yes. Well, we don't like spend that much time thinking about this specific issue, but it's there whether we want it or not. So, for instance, Splinter was a collective experience, but it was separated in smaller individual ones. That came to be if you were multiple individuals interacting together. So it was a try. I wouldn't say it was the best outcome for this type of like collective experience, but if you try to impose a set of rules and goals for like unknown people in the public, it's really hard to get them to like collaborate. So it's better to assume chaos and see what's gonna come out of it. And for instance, a better version of that, I would say, is Tetra, which is not thought out to be individual, but the screen is so big that you get to, well, if I'm on one side and there's someone on the other side, both our like interactions are at one point, they're gonna connect together because the force gets so big. So then we get a small collective moment, not necessarily the most interconnected one that I could feel, but it's a better step in that direction. So it's kind of, maybe I would say, making it like creating a bigger field to play in. I don't know. So then, because people are gonna want to play alone, but then the second step would be, okay, how can I interact with somebody else? I'd say it gets hard from there. So I don't have a perfect answer, but.
No, there are no easy questions, no easy answers here.
Cheers. I've got a question from Jack, who asks, what would you recommend for someone just starting out? Is Arduino the most important thing, or learning to code, or doing a full electrical engineering degree?
I think if you're able to touch a little bit of everything, that's really helpful because, again, the technology goes so fast that even if we could say learn C++ or Python, and probably in 4 years it's going to change. But adapting is one thing, and be curious if you like technology. I would say like, try to figure how things are being done, and if you have no clue, yeah, try to find it, and then explore with different technology. I don't think we had enough time today to just name every technology we tried. They all have good pros and cons depending on the setup. But technology is a big part of it, but it's also how you make things happen. So you need knowledge in lots of different areas, but you don't have to be a specialist. There's also a lot of open source communities everywhere in most of those software.
I would say, so once again, it's not about a specific technology. Of course, well, I'll name drop Touch Designer, which is a software we use in 100% of our projects, which is great, but I've been a coder for, I don't know, 20 years almost. I know many languages, and if, like Joe said, if someday something else comes by, I'll probably switch. But I've always created and learned was to give myself an objective to create a project. So start by saying, okay, I'll do a small thing that reacts to colors, and then you do that. Whatever the path you're gonna take, it becomes skill that you build, and then the next project afterwards. Okay, how can I'm gonna do something with solar energy, whatever. And creating all of these projects then becomes skills, then becomes what we do today. And like if you've seen the pictures from earlier at the beginning of the talk, it's the same process. It's like, oh, let's take a laser and shoot inside of this water pool and see what happens. Oh, it's nice. Oh, it gets a refraction. why don't we create a project about refraction? What's the difference between that and when I was in my parents' basement toying around the Arduino? And so it's not a specific thing. It's about the process of creating this project, the hacker mentality or some. So this would be a great way to start. Yeah.
And maybe if I can just add, most of our success were literally mistakes. So yeah, you learn by mistakes, and you also learn through your mistakes how people react to the mistakes. So that's also interesting. So watch and learn, and it's a feedback loop that's always getting fed. So yeah, keep learning the most you can, and be curious.
I was curious about how kind of limited you feel by the technology, like how much you have to rein back. Like if you start with some like grand ambitious idea, how much you then have to rein it back just because of time or what you're able to code or whatever. And then I guess like second part, I would love to hear like what those big ideas are, if you could like magically make them happen.
Like, how much do we think about technology at first, or
Like how much is it the case that you like have to rein back if you have like a big great image in your head of what you want to do? Like how much do you have to rein it back just because of the real world?
I think we start from intention rather than technology, but I think it depends. But so if we're like, once again, maybe the laser example is good. It's like let's do that. Let's maybe intuition, and so okay then if we want to do that, so maybe then we start to break it down in smaller pieces. Maybe we're gonna try this. This sensor doesn't work. No, this type of material. No. So we try and we try. So yes, in a way, I think we start from intention that we'd like to what the public to do, and then we try many paths, and then we take the easiest one or the only one that works. And sometimes it becomes another project because the mistake was the project. Yeah.
Yeah, and I could agree with you that we could say that, like, let's say we're privileged because like we're in the middle of the city, we have projectors that cost like a lot of money, and just to have access to that is quite hard and it's still hard. Like, so I think it's going to be always hard because as technology gets better, everything gets more expensive. But if I can give you a small hint, maybe I think one of our first ever project that no one saw, and I'm very, very happy of, but we were in a subway tunnel and we were all holding lights with the little click that opens them, and when people were just walking in front of us, we would just click it and click it back, and we were 5, and the reaction on the face of the people, us doing that, was almost as good as some good project that we love to showcase. So yeah, be creative, and yeah, you'll have, even if it's a smile is still an interaction, and it's a complex interaction you receive. So yeah, you can be creative with stuff, just even lights, so yeah.
More questions?
And talking about the Bristol Light Festival and looking at your amazing work, light is so prominent. What is the relationship you have with light?
Yeah, well, so for Tetra, we almost see it as its own matter. So it's, of course, there's light being projected on a spandex, but since it's such an otherworldly material, we kind of see it as a new type of thing that. So it's not anymore about light or sound, which is also important in the work. It's about like this new kind of thing that exists by itself. So, but light it's like an inherent part of everything that we do, because it's how we start to attract you and start to communicate with you. So it goes back to communication and.
Yeah, I think in general, light, like if we go back to the cognitive system, we have hands, we have ears, we have eyes. So I think what we are most used to in the daily, when you walk around, your eyes will be kind of your first layer of not seeing the world, you know, so light will also always be present in our work, I think. And then sound is kind of the second. Smell is kind of a questionable one depending on every individual, but then if we can which we're always interested in, is implying the body in the work. So no matter how you touch, you move, your body take part of it. I think this is where we succeed. And for Tetra, in this case, is you can really get literally in the piece. So we're pretty happy about that. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I hope we're all going to go and see Tetra tonight or for the next 9 days,
Yeah.
10 days. Thank you so very much.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. And I think there's flyers in the back.
Yes.
So,
For the festival.
Before everyone goes, just a reminder, especially if you're new to the studio today, that the studio is open. You can go on hot desk. If you have questions about where to sit, what to do, what is the studio about, you can ask me or Loud Team or any of the other. We'll signpost you to people from the staff. If you're online and you still have questions, you can email studio@watershed.co.uk. And also a reminder that this is not the only event we're doing in collaboration with Bristol Light Festival. Next week, we have our monthly showcasing networking event, First Friday, that happens every first Friday of every month from 5 till 7. And next one is dedicated to light in collaboration with the Bristol Light Festival. So I hope to see you all there to an open evening on Friday. And thank you so very much, everyone, for being here and the ones online.